culture eats process every day for lunch. So you could have the best processes and systems and feel like you have that. But if you don't have the culture in your business, you're just not going to have as successful a business.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Behind Their Success podcast. I'm Peyton Squires, the host, and today we have on Erik Brenner. Erik is the president and CEO of Hilltop Wealth and Tax Solutions. With over 30 years of experience guiding clients through financial planning, Erik is a certified financial planner and a recognized leader in the wealth management space. He's here to share his journey about his family business and founding his own firm and to offer some practical advice for entrepreneurs. Erik, welcome on the show.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, Erik. So tell us a little bit about what you currently do.
Yeah, so currently this is my 32nd year. I run an independent registered investment advisory wealth firm. We also have a tax and accounting division as well. Then we work with clients around the country.
Very cool. Your business model sounds basically exactly the same as mine. As a CPA and a CFP myself, I have a tax business and a wealth business as well. Well, kind of want to dig into your journey a little bit. You've been in the business for over 30 years. Kind of take us back to how you got into the financial space.
Yeah, so I grew up in a family business. There's kind of entrepreneur born in me. I had other family members that were also entrepreneurs. And if you ask those people that knew me when I was young, they thought I would take over the family business and, legacy would continue. And all of that would have been great. I just didn't feel like it was for me for the next, 30 plus years. So we ended up structuring those and selling them. And I ran across this business, really looking for other businesses to get into and thought, this is a kind of low capital in, put a lot of sweat equity in. Mm-hmm. And the great thing is, we get to help people along the way. And so from there, we've just continued to grow and expand. And certainly the business has changed over the last 30 years.
Yeah, probably just a little bit, right?
Just a little bit.
A couple areas, right? Yeah, and you're right. This is kind of a professional service type business model, right? It is low capital, right? Because at the beginning, you're just running around spending your own time, trying to, get clients and grow the business. So certainly can be a business people can get into without, capital, right? But the trade-off is it's usually a good ramp-up period before you really start to see the dividends and the long-term growth and that stuff.
Yeah. So that entrepreneur kind of spirit, helped lay a foundation and kind of growing into the business. And I found back then too, a lot of folks that were in the business, maybe they were affiliated with a firm, maybe they were affiliated with a firm and independent, multiple different models. A lot of them really didn't think about it and invest in it like a business. And so just felt like if you did that over time, then it would pay off.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You can come into the financial space and be more like an advisor that's working for somebody else. And even though you're developing and growing your own practice, right? But it tends to be the people that actually treat that as their own business that, it ultimately turns into their own business, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So Erik, you do a lot of different, wealth and tax-based stuff. Kind of tell us about the journey a little bit, itself. So you've been in there for 30 years. Tell us about maybe one of the largest setbacks or something you've ran into that you've overcome. Just a little story around it.
Yeah, I think probably one of the largest setbacks is figuring out how to put good people around you. So it didn't necessarily come natural to me. Mm-hmm. And so it took some trial and error and figuring out, how to surround yourself with good people, because, in this business, you just, it's a people business and you have to have the right people. And so that really took some challenges. Also back 30 years ago, there really wasn't, you didn't go get educated and schooled on how to be an entrepreneur and a leader. And so, in our business, a lot of people are advisors, but they're not leaders.
Yeah.
And so it's a trial and error versus getting schooled, where a lot of large corporations, they obviously school and groom those people that are going to lead the organization in the future. They get a lot of that on the job training on, how to lead people. And so I found that to be a big challenge, and it still is a challenge. You're dealing with people, but if you just learn how to surround yourself with really good people, I learned something early on that, culture eats process every day for lunch. So you could have the best processes and systems and feel like you have that. But if you don't have the culture in your business, you're just not going to have as successful a business.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree with everything you say there, Eric. And you're right. It really does come back to leadership. And the bottleneck in a professional service type business is, it's people, right? Like, it's not necessarily client acquisition or whatnot. The biggest bottleneck is having quality people to actually service the clients. And, to grow a business in this space, like you have to be the leader, right? The owner of the business and the leader, and lead by example. That way you can attract, quite honestly, attract high level people that, like, man, I want to go work for Eric because he's got his stuff together and is way down the road further than me, right? So going in another direction there, so we kind of talked about some setbacks there. What would you credit as like the best decision you've made that's really led to this level of success you've had?
Yeah, I think, a really good decision early on was to continue to, invest back into the business. So when I said, and I got started in this business, and I came from a business where, we budgeted for marketing and, did that. And it was just a consistent thing that we did. Mm-hmm. And so I got into this business and I was just shocked. And I'm still shocked today how people don't treat that. If you're in a franchise system, also often franchise systems have a required kind of
marketing
contribution, spending. Right? Mm-hmm. And so when you send in your royalty check, there's a certain percentage that's going to marketing, and that marketing's going to be maybe locally, regionally, or even that, participates nationally. And so it, by me saying I'm going to invest back into the business, and, now we call it cost per new client. And of course, we didn't call it that then, but I think early on I devoted that, and that was a success. Then the other thing is that many years ago, 20 years ago or so, when really kind of acquisitions became more and more popular versus, someone leaving or retiring in a firm and they just turned in their clients. That doesn't do the clients any good because they just get it turned in. There's really not a transition plan. And then also they didn't really build equity, enterprise value. They didn't think about it that way. And so I schooled myself 20 plus years ago in that, how that goes, how the structure goes, how do you transition clients in the best way that's best for the clients. And so, we've done some acquisitions along the way that I think has been good for the business and good for the clients. Ultimately, I have a huge, huge belief that it's got to be right for the client. And if it's right for the client, then it's right for the business.
Yeah. Ultimately. Yeah. And you made a lot of good points there, Eric. You started off there talking about investing back in the business, something I did not do a good job of in my first, 6-7 years. Like I kind of treated my business as treated it almost as a job, and I would take all my money and then go invest and do other businesses. And I never really invested in my own business, stupidly enough.
Yeah.
They not really turned around, huh? And then you're right, though. You invest back in your own business, you invest back in marketing and whatnot, and also invest back in operations and processes and really building those things out. Ultimately, then you can get to that, that M&A type space, right? Where you're looking to merge with another business, or that you've built such a nice machine here that has the marketing, that has the processes. And since I have this nice machine, it's really easy for me to just go buy this other business and plop it on top of my machine and get all the value out of it, right?
Yeah, it makes it easier. Obviously, it doesn't make it easy, but it definitely makes it easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I'm really focusing on. As I said, I've spent a lot of time in my career not actually doing that in the business, but it's really focusing on processes and all those things so we can, I can start doing more things like that. You're obviously a busy guy, successful guy, right? How over your career have you really balanced that with the rest of the demands of life, the rest of family and different things? How do you go about balancing, the demands of your career with really every other piece that you have?
Yeah, there's times and challenges that it's tough, but I think a couple key things. One is that I do a pretty good job of identifying what my strengths are and then also what my weaknesses are. And so, with this surrounding yourself with good people, I've sought out and lucky enough now to have good people on the team that helps me with my weaknesses. And so that's a big part of it. And secondly is I do a pretty good job on what my important roles in the firm are. So my important roles in the firm, there's a lot of other things that happen, right? Multiple things during the day. And I don't need to be doing those. And so I do a good job of the delegation part of it and kind of setting up systems to where it's not overwhelming from that standpoint. Now, there are times where, it does become more overwhelming, but those kind of balances and having those systems, I've run across a lot of entrepreneurs and practitioners over the years that say, well, it only takes me, X amount of time to do this. And well, if you look at that and you add it up, over a week, over a month, over a year, it probably is more time than what you think. And so I've kind of set myself up to think about that, find the right people in the right role, and then utilize my strengths. And by investing in the business. So, when I talk about investing in the business, I'm not just talking about a marketing budget or, you're also talking about hiring someone before you really need them.
Yeah, before you're rich, really.
Right, right. And preparing kind of them so that you can continue to kind of grow and, not let, in our business, it's not let the customer or the client relationship suffer.
Yep. And that's probably the biggest issue with it, growing and expanding in professional services is, not losing that customer connection there. And you're right. You talked about delegating and you say practitioners and whatnot, talk about, I can do it faster. And of course, I'm guilty of that too, but you might be able to do it faster that one time. Right. And sure you can, you're the one that knows how to do it. But the problem is you got to do that every time for the rest of your life. If you would slow down, take 10 minutes to teach somebody to do it, well, then you just got all those minutes back for the rest of your life. And it's like thinking the long term, right? You're investing, it's just like investing, right? You're investing a little bit of time right now to get huge payoffs, right? Dividends in the future, right? And just kind of thinking about that. But when you're under pressure and you just want something done, well, you just do it.
Right. Correct. Yeah. So I think it's just really important to kind of identify those, be true to yourself and say, where are my strengths? Where am I not as strong, and where do you need to be within the business itself? And then constantly think about that leading forward. So,
yeah. And that, and I think that all begins with, self-awareness, right? Understanding yourself. Right. You need to do the work on yourself as a leader, as an entrepreneur, to be able to know, okay, what am I good at? And be honest with yourself. What are you not good at? And to be able to delegate that and you can become self-aware, realize what holes you have, and then go out in the marketplace and find amazing people that come in and fill all those holes. They fill all those things that you hate to do, but they love to do it because they're really good at it. And you're just plugging all these holes, right? And that's really kind of how you put a whole team together.
Correct.
Are you looking for a new tax experience? Looking for an advisor that actually brings you high-level ideas and proactively plans so you aren't overpaying your taxes? Or how about one that even just responds and communicates in a timely fashion? If any of that resonates with you, you probably just have a tax preparer and not a tax planner. And it is through the tax planning process where all the value is found. And when tax planning is done right, it has a positive return on investment. I'm Peyton Squires. I'm a CPA and owner of Squires Tax Planning. We work alongside entrepreneurs and high-income earners, helping them pay the least amount of income taxes, both legally and ethically. We have saved our clients hundreds of thousands of dollars through specific strategies, and we guarantee we can find multiple tax strategies that your current tax preparer hasn't told you about. If that interests you, head over to squirestaxplanning.com. There you can take our free assessment to see how likely it is that you are overpaying on your income taxes. From there, you can also book a free tax discovery call with our team to see what it would look like to have us working for you. So looking back, just talking about leadership, you've grown a good sized company now where your role, as you say, you really shift out of operations and less practitioner and more leader and founder and owner. How has your leadership style changed or evolved over the years, if so? And can you kind of just speak to that if it has changed, how your leadership style may have changed over the years?
Oh, it's definitely changed. I mean, I, used to be years ago in my younger years, probably more quick to react, right? And I didn't have, I learned the strategic pause method early on where, you strategically pause to think it through. And I learned the cause and effect funnel. And so I was starting out kind of and growing up in entrepreneur business, much more quick to react and not think through things strategically. And, I had someone one time say when email started to come out and obviously in an email sometimes, and now it goes to text, right. And other messaging, direct messaging, but oftentimes those are misread.
Yeah,
you can read into them and
doesn't
say,
have emotion with it.
Right. Right. And, this is what they meant. And so I learned the 24-hour rule. So I teach my team, if you have something you're thinking about and it's something that, could be, controversial or those kinds of things, practice the 24-hour rule and let that set. I mean, you certainly could draft it or write it. And that's that strategic pause. So, and then I also learned a kind of a communication model with really team people. You can use it with clients, you can use it with, family, but, you identify, say, we've got this issue, I want to hear what your side of the, tell me what your view is and what your side is. I'm going to give you what my view is. And then let's come to a conclusion on how we're going to resolve this going forward. And then we'll come back together and whatever the issue is and see where we progress forward. And so, there's in that listening model, there's always, right, listen more, right? Listen more than you're talking. So if you allow people to kind of, share their side first, I find that, in leading, that really helps them kind of think it through, obviously get out their emotions, get out what their view is, and then kind of get out a view on my end as well.
Yeah.
And so those kinds of things that what I've changed. And, it is a continuous learning process. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I, do a lot of learning because like I said, it's not it's not a math problem, right?
Yeah.
In
There's
our
no
business
solution, right?
Right. In our business, I mean, we can run a, calculation, right, that gives us a number. That's not what the way this is because, every situation is a bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you certainly have a lot more experience than mine. These are lessons I'm learning along the way. And yeah, I think it's being a leader, right? And it's not that there's any serious conflict, but it's like, being able to talk through conflict resolution and just coming to an agreement, right? With your people.
Yeah. I think another thing is, when there is an issue, you need to address it.
Yeah.
So, right, exactly. So, and that was something I think that has changed where before I would just kind of let it,
You're like, maybe it'll go away.
yeah, maybe it'll disappear but you just need to address it. And, how you address it, right, is obviously a key. And, I think overall leadership styles in general, right, even in large companies, it used to be more kind of a, dictator, this is what you're doing, yelling and screaming at people and stuff like that. And you see a lot of the leaders now that run large organizations. Now we don't see behind the doors, and I'm sure there's some heated, moments, but you see a more of kind of a, more of that caring type.
Yeah.
And that kind of correct.
Yeah.
It's not the old football coach kind of approach.
Yeah.
And I think that's how it's evolved. And I think people now that are coming to the workforce, I mean, that's how they want to be treated. They're not into, nor did they grow up necessarily with that kind, more really harsh environment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that makes leadership even more important, right? Because like you said, leadership styles used to be more of I don't know, you call it like a stick or a whip a little bit, right? Of like, hey, this is what you do, go do it, go do it, go do it, right? And now it's more of, okay, I'm the leader. Do you want to come join my team and follow me? And do you want to come be a part of this mission and what we're building and that kind of thing, right? Where
Yeah.
you're not demanding stuff out of people, but you're leading them in a way where they'll rise to those standards, I guess.
Right.
So you're a financial guy, kind of like me. You've probably worked with a lot of entrepreneurs in your career. If you can give entrepreneurs one piece of financial advice, say when they're starting out their business, or maybe they're a few years into their business, what are maybe a piece of advice or some pitfalls you see or common problems, some advice for them around just the financial space?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things besides what we had talked about. One is, as a business owner or entrepreneur, you need to understand your numbers. So I see a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners and, small businesses and so forth. And, they really don't have an understanding of, am I making money or not? Where am I spending money? Right. So you need to understand your numbers and you need to have that consistently. So a lot of them just let that just fall by the wayside and, runs on that part of it. The other thing is it's really good to have vision kind of where, looking out. So, that's a big role, I think, for someone leading an organization. Certainly when you look at the larger organizations, I mean, they're about the visionary and this is where we see it going. And so you need to have that anticipation and then lead people to that. And oftentimes if you're working in your business, right, instead of, thinking about working on your business, you're in it, there's not that separation. And that's really tough sometimes because, you're in the work every day, you've got this going on. And so I think those are some of the clear directions as to, that really help, someone be successful in their business.
Yeah, 100%. Know the numbers. I've talked about that a lot. And we've talked about a lot on this podcast where it's not surprising to me. Like I see multi-million-dollar revenue businesses. I wouldn't say all the time, but consistently that have no clue what their numbers are. It's amazing how good those entrepreneurs are to even get to that point. You really have no idea what's even going on. So it's, obviously that's a huge pillar of business. You've got to know your numbers to make business decisions.
Another thing is hire a coach. So hire someone to help you work on your business. They say a lot, right? I mean, the best, I'm a golfer, the best golfers in the world still have someone working with them. Right. Mm-hmm. And if they're not feeling it after a while with that one, or they got multiple, right. Mm-hmm. And so I know, a lot of times they look at it and it's a lot of money, hourly or however they charge, but they can give you insight and provide you feedback. And, it doesn't have to be something that's every week, but it's money well spent that you hire someone to, bounce things off of, because it's often a lonely place at the top.
Oh, very, very.
And, when you're an entrepreneur, and we're not talking about running a large business. So it's not like, there's a really skilled board, right. That has a lot of experience in running large organizations. And so a coach, business coach, business, advisor, someone that can help you along the way and be a good sounding board. That's what I look for. I look for someone when I'm working with someone is, can you be also help and direct me on things I'm working on, but also can you be a sounding board, right? And be honest with me and say, no, that might not be the direction, or think about it a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. That's something that has been game changing for me. Probably the last 3-4 years is stop trying to do this in isolation, right? I have a great sounding boards and masterminds and amazing entrepreneurs in my life now where I can, connect with them and just get honest, open feedback of their opinion, right? And they can be pretty brutal with me, which I like that because
Right.
they will give their honest opinion, right? And
Right.
you don't necessarily have to listen to everything anybody says, but it's also important to realize, okay, you're taking on the coach or listening to other people's advice. It's like, okay, are they qualified to give you that advice, right? Have they done what you're trying to do, right? You kind of looking for a guide or somebody that is actually done. Or, I mean, they have what you want, right?
Right.
So they can guide you to it. But yeah. I mean, big picture, like being able to pay a coach, it seems like maybe that's a lot of money. And I spend a lot of money on coaching and groups and development. But I mean, how much is a few years worth of your life, right? I mean, one of these coaches, you can pay them some money and then they've cut years off your path of getting to, ultimately wherever you want to be, right? So, I mean, that can be an insanely good return on investment.
Right. And that is part of, like I mentioned earlier, is investing back into the business. So when we were talking about maybe some things that a lot of entrepreneurs don't do is, taking and investing back into the business.
Yeah.
And
And in professional services, a lot of the business, especially in the beginning, is you and your skill set, right? And investing back into that to, multiply your skills. Once again, it's probably the best investment you can ever make because you get to carry those skills for the rest of your life. Those skills don't just add up; they start compounding and stacking on each other and become more and more and more. You become more and more rare, more and more valuable, more and more niche, and nobody can really take those away from you.
yeah. The other great thing now with, obviously we're doing this, virtually. So the world's opened up to coaches and it's really nice because, years and years and years ago, I mean, it was a phone call and it's not quite, you're not seeing the reaction of folks and stuff. So it just has been great. So, there's a lot of them and, they don't necessarily have to be in your industry. Because if they understand, what you're in kind of what you're trying to accomplish and understand it, a lot of industries obviously transfer to other industries. So,
oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Just be careful. You're not getting into, some kind of guru or somebody that's, like there's a million great coaches out there. There's just as many terrible coaches out there.
Sure.
Because they can sell stuff on they're good marketers on the internet. So it's once again, like as you get into some of that stuff, it's, doing research on those people and making sure they've done what you want and are quality integrity people.
Yeah, what I've done is a true interview process. So, I'm interviewing you and you are one of many, and then also references. So who you going to share, right? Now, certainly they're going to share the references on the ones that were success, but if they're willing to share those, obviously, and, just really come into it as, look, I'm looking at this, right? And you're not a guarantee for me and I'm not a guarantee for you. And yet you're right. And then weed out the one that's going to fit for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, hey, here's the problem I'm trying to solve. Like, have you ever solved this problem before?
Right.
Right. Or can you point to a couple times that you've solved it before with somebody else or whatever? Right. Like that's, just me trying to assure that I'm actually buying, what I think I'm buying or what to buy. Right.
Right.
Last question here for you, Eric. So going back 30 years, you're starting a financial career. If you could whisper into that guy's ear one piece of advice.
I think, that's hard because you're narrowing it down to one piece of advice, right? Nope. And it's kind of hard, but
yeah, that's a million.
Right. And what I would say is to be confident in yourself and never give up. So I kind of split it off into two pieces, but be confident in what you're doing and whatever business you're in and helping people and never give up.
And if you have those two things, and you just persist, you can, as cliche as it sounds, you can basically accomplish anything you want.
Right.
Continue to show up and continue to do the thing. Right.
Yep.
Well, Eric, man, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate you coming on. What is the best way the listeners can get a hold of you or connect with you or your companies or anything like that?
Yeah. So the best way right now, because I just released a book called The Personal CFO Revolution. And so hireapersonalcfo.com. It's hireapersonalcfo.com. They can hit that and then that'll hit our webpage, find out more about us. There's all the information in there. And best way to do it. And if you want a free copy of the book, that's on there as well.
Awesome, Eric. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you. Anything you want to leave the listeners before we go?
No, I just wish everyone well. And, being an entrepreneur is a wonderful thing. I couldn't work for anybody.
Yeah, I can't.
Controlling kind of, it's scary at times, right? But it's also controlling kind of what the outcome is. And looking back, I don't regret it one bit.
Awesome. Well, Erik, appreciate you. Appreciate the encouragement for the listeners. And listeners, we'll catch you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you found it valuable, please rate, review, and share it. That is the best way to help us build this and reach more people, as we're trying to accomplish our goal of help creating more healthy, wealthy, and wise entrepreneurs. You can follow us on social media by searching for me, Peyton Squires, or going to PeytonSquires.com. On the website and social media, we're always sharing tips of personal growth, and there we can actually interact. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.